stuff.
Okay.
And I'm so excited. Okay, so check this out. We are in LA, right? So
Yes.
I busted out my halter top from high school, which was just like a couple weeks ago, right?
Nice.
And I got my overalls on for the hot weather. Yeah. So can you match me on that?
Yeah. Look at this.
Oh, like Volcom. Are they Volcom?
These are O'Neills. So
O'Neil.
I got my Rasta vibe going.
Oh man, I was close. So I am so excited. Hello, everyone. As you know, my name is Esprit Devora, and this is We Are LA Tech on Blab, and I have the amazing Colin Vincent with us. And I hear a bit of a little echo. Derek, maybe you could tell us why. Maybe it's because I talk too loud. Maybe, Colin, one thing that I've tried when I've used other programs, if you could turn down your volume just a bit because we could hear the feedback in the earphones.
Okay.
So Colin has a great LA startup called Equity Directory, and he's been getting tons of press lately. So I'm excited to have him on the WeAreLATech Lab show. So this is Meet LA Startup Equity Directory. Colin, go ahead and tell us more and tell us about yourself.
Sure. So Equity Directory was born out of personal frustration, trying to find people to share a vision and help me build a company for equity. And during the experience of building the last company, I ran across this frustration and came across a company that came on board for equity, but I only had one option. My frustration was that I didn't have a pool of people to choose from. And so as that engagement unfortunately went south, I had time on my hands to address this problem. And so after having a little experience in the startup scene, I sort of knew what I was looking for in terms of validation. And so I threw up a type form. I sort of I learned how to do validation cheaper.
Right.
Instead of saying I have an idea and I'm going to build it and then everyone's going to love my whatever I build. And that had been my mindset for a while, and it was very hard to break me out of that mindset. Even though I sort of knew that was the right thing, it actually took a little bit of work to get me out of that. And then when I came up with the idea for Equity Directory, I launched like I said, a type form and a logo garden. Like I went to Logo Garden and spent $10 on a logo, and it was
Wait, what's Logo Garden? I haven't heard of that before.
It's like you can make a logo, but with sort of clip art.
Right.
And so they have like some clip art and some prescribed fonts, and you can very quickly make a pretty basic logo. You can actually make a pretty good one if you find the right design. Anyway, I wasn't very happy with it, but it did the trick. And
right.
So I put that up for the type form and threw it up on, all it said was quality people willing to work for equity. And threw it up on Twitter and LinkedIn. And what I like about Typeform is that it's got great analytics. And so you can attach Google Analytics to it.
I love Typeform. I use Typeform for WeAreLATech.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a nice experience. Everything's nice about it. So I set that up, and the conversion rate was 40% from just a landing page to people filling out the application. It was a very brief application. And so then that sort of, I shared that with my co-founder, Lisa, and she got excited. And so we decided to spend more time building out another version of the landing page, which looked a little prettier. And we started promoting it. And that's where I started really experiencing some fun growth hacks. One of them was I found a blog post on a popular blog that talked about equity. And it was a 2007 blog post, but it ranked high on Google. And so I went in and read the article, and then found the comment section, took a screenshot of our landing page, and put it in the comments along with something about plugging our site.
Right.
And it was basically, it was a very valid response. It was like, this is exactly why we created Equity Directory. And here's a link and here's a landing page. But if you scroll down the comments of that blog post, there's only one comment that has a picture, and it's mine. And so we still get 1 to 2 signups from that one comment on that one blog post that I spent 10 minutes posting like 4 months ago.
That's amazing.
So
It's amazing how every little bit counts. You know, like sometimes you feel like as a startup, you're spending a lot of time on just why am I doing this? And then you see the ROI in it that you couldn't have expected or even imagined a long time later.
couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
It's really cool to see the analytics when those come in.
Yeah.
And so then that was really like a neat experience. We tried to get it on beta list, but they rejected us, saying that our landing page didn't have enough information.
Oh, yeah.
Enough information.
They're very strict about that stuff.
And so we revisited.
For everybody that doesn't know what beta list is, and you guys that are watching right now or that are watching when we're not live anymore, you'll see my eyes looking around because Blab is an interactive experience. So I'm looking at the chat, engaging with people on the chat, and talking to Colin. It's a lot to pay attention to, but welcome. So if you haven't heard of Beta List before, it's a fantastic site. They're actually a huge supporter of WeAreLATech. Awesome. And I also featured an old startup on Beta List. And what you do is when you get featured on Beta List, which could either be free or if you pay to have it expedited, you get put on this site of early adopters, people just like really geeking out on like what's new. And then you could get your first customers from that essentially. So, but yeah, they're very huge sticklers on not having generic landing pages. It's a big deal. So yeah. Anyway, continue forward.
So we put some more effort into the landing page and submitted the Express, and unfortunately, it ran on Friday morning, and then we started trending, and we were trending in first place. And then we trended all weekend. I was like,
right.
Why couldn't we have trended on Monday? But we still got I think 300 to 400 signups. We still get signups from that. I don't know how people are still seeing that, but we still get signups from Beta List, which was awesome.
Yeah, Beta List is amazing. Yeah.
And so
what did you end up using to build your landing page the first time that you got rejected?
Great question. So it was Kickoff Labs.
Kickoff Labs. Wait, now explain to us what Kickoff Labs is.
So Kickoff Labs is so if you're familiar with LaunchRock or Unbounce or Instapage or Lead Pages, or as another example, it's one of those SaaS products that helps you set up a landing page very quickly and has good analytics on the back end that you don't have to set up. Here's what I like about it. I've used a number of these. I've used LaunchRock is just too primitive, in my opinion. It's good for something quick and dirty, but if you really mean it, you should use something else. I like Unbounce and I like Kickoff Labs. What I like about Kickoff Labs is that it forces the design template isn't as customizable as Unbounce, which is good because I spend less time fussing. And my design is responsive.
Totally. I've used Unbounce too. I used Lead Pages for my landing page for Beta List. But once the Beta List team catches on to these tools, then they start to say nope. So I think if someone used Lead Pages today, they wouldn't pass. I got lucky.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you got them. Oh yes, go ahead.
One thing I just want to plug Kickoff Labs and their CEO and their support team.
What's the domain?
Kickofflabs.com.
Cool.
Their level of support was unmatched, and to the point where the founder he came on. I wanted to do a viral thank you page,
right?
That I'd read about, and I asked him if that was something that they offered, and he said they offered it in the next tier up,
right?
But that he would give me that one feature complimentary, and so I didn't have to upgrade to the whole to whatever it was the next tier to get that one.
I love it when any company values customer experience. It's awesome. Okay, cool. So now we're on Beta List, and now it's months later, and we're still getting traffic from Beta List. And how did you get your initial customers? First of all, let's be really clear, just in case. So the point of Equity Directory is to connect someone building a startup to vendors who can help them in that journey, but they get equity in exchange in lieu of payment. Is that correct?
Sure. So frequently people are making deals to work in exchange for equity. And a developer may be asked to work on a project, and then the question comes: would you be willing to work on this for equity, or would you be willing to work on this for half cash, half equity? Or even sometimes the developer really likes the project and proposes to work on it in exchange for equity. And in some cases, the answer is no, because they don't need that. But you get my point: is that it's a conversation that's been happening, that's only happening more, and there wasn't a place to have the conversation.
And we have a question from Eric Grill. Any SEC concerns from public offering?
Public offering. We are not currently facilitating any agreements. We actually are talking with a lawyer right now about coming on board and helping us. But currently all we're doing is connecting people and allowing them to make their own agreements. So I can't speak to that yet.
So you're facilitating relationships at this stage.
Right.
And that's all. It's as simple as that. And Eric's actually going to join us toward the end of our interview, so he could ask you any questions one-on-one. So if you could hold off on your questions for a second, Eric, he'll save them, as he's saying in the interactive chat, and he'll jump on with us. So on your startup journey, so now you recognize that there's this core need and you're really excited to build it. When did you start attracting your first customers?
The first paying customers or first users?
Both. Because both are important.
Okay, so agreed. So one thing I should mention that I want to not forget is that in the middle of the beta list, trending on beta list, we added a viral thank you page on Kickoff Labs, which was the feature that I wanted to add. And that allowed us to, we saw 14% viral boost rate the next day, meaning 14% of our signups came from viral sharing. And then I read an article, which I'm going to mention in a blog post that I can post after this interview. I read his blog post, talks about the viral thank you page and broke it down. And I went in and made some modifications and thinned out the whole page.
Right.
And the viral boost rate went from 14% to 44% overnight because I thinned down that page.
Wow. Can you, anybody that wants to get in touch, because there's everybody that's watching now and everybody that's going to be watching later, how can they get in touch with you if they have questions on how to find that viral thank you page post?
Sure. Just send me an email to colin@equitydirectory.co.
.co. All right. Perfect. Okay. So customers.
Yeah.
Customers.
Okay. So
hello to Hatch Studios who just joined us, and the Rainmaker. Oh, wait, Colin, before we continue, what is a viral thank you page?
A viral thank you page is when you go to a landing page and you submit your email address. The next page says, do you want early access? Refer 5 friends, or refer whatever number of friends. It's an arbitrary number that you can put in whatever you want to. But point is that there's a counter and there's sharing buttons that have a tracking number or tracking ID that you use when you share out to your Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and then email. The rest I removed the other sharing buttons because they didn't convert very well, and I wanted to drive shares down the highest converting channels. And so that's what a viral thank you page is. It simply encourages people to share for some sort of incentive. Awesome.
All right, cool. Back on track.
Okay.
And
so first customers. So we had I don't know, well over 1,000 email signups, well over 500 complete applications. And I was like, okay, we got to do something here. So I wanted to start connecting people. And
by the way, congratulations.
Thank you. And so that was, and those are old numbers. That was when we started the beta 2 months ago. And so I was like, okay, well, let me see if I got to do something here. So I used Zapier and WordPress and the Typeform, and I just cobbled together an MVP and built a...
Okay, wait. You're throwing out a lot of terms some people might know. Zapier, WordPress, MVP. Let's start with MVP. MVP is a minimum viable product. So it means getting something up as quickly as possible. And so the way Colin did that was via WordPress and Zapier, which are really cool tools. So if you're not a developer and you know nothing about developer, I'd really suggest kind of taking a pause with WordPress. However, if you know even just a little bit, WordPress is amazing. So let's assume people watching know how to put together a WordPress. How did you use Zapier and WordPress together, and what is Zapier?
So Zapier, Zapier is one of my favorite tools ever invented. I have a background in development, and so I know enough to be semi-dangerous, but I can't. But I also realize that tools like Zapier it's like a power sword. I feel like. I call it's just an API switchboard. It's literally like you take one web application, another web application, and Zapier allows those two web applications to talk. So
totally.
For example, Typeform is a very simple web application, and you can use it to collect form data like people's first name, last name, email address. And then you could use Zapier to create a web page on WordPress that has the first name, last name, email address. But you get the idea. It could be a lot more complex, but you could use Typeform to actually create a page on WordPress using Zapier.
Totally. And like the WeAreLATech, when people sign up for WeAreLATech.com, I get a text message that someone new signed up. So I know I can go to my email right away and send them a personal email like, welcome, kumbaya to our family. And by the way, everybody watching, if you want to click the little birdie to your left-hand side that says tell a little bird, you could tweet out this awesome conversation Colin and I are having about Equity Directory, his LA startup. So continue forward. So you utilize Zapier and WordPress to
get something up and running. And I knew it wasn't scalable because I had to create every user account manually. And it was a little bit of a process, but I knew that I could start onboarding people. And so I first started onboarding people for free, thinking I'll just see what they're willing to pay later. And so I onboarded so what I did was I reached out, I created a little an email inside ActiveCampaign, which is a great tool for email marketing. Mm-hmm. And what was cool is I created the email, and then I created two more emails, and it was basically the same one, but the second one said, we'll send you one more reminder, and the last one said, this is your last reminder. And then I would send people, like I would break off a list of 10 people from my list, and I would upload that list, and so then they would be in this workflow. And if they signed up, then they got pulled off a list. But if they didn't, they got the subsequent emails, so that I wasn't just sending one email one time and crossing my fingers that a busy person's going to see it.
So you're saying you segmented your list, so different sections of your list. And what list means is different people who have signed up to be part of your email list. You would test different methods on each segment to see which one worked the best, correct? Yeah, okay, cool. Go ahead.
And so then, I got about, I don't know, maybe close to 75 or so people on board, and wasn't charging anything, but within 4 hours was already making connections. And so over the course of the next couple of weeks, I was very encouraged by the people coming on board, and I was doing onboarding phone calls. And so I would spend between 15 minutes to half an hour with every person that I brought on, in an effort to really develop a personal relationship with my early users. And I think that's really important. I can't stress how important that is, actually. and not just because, for so many reasons, but I think aside from it just being, it feels good to know who your users are, and they appreciate you so much more if there's a personality behind the business, and they can connect with you. And you, as a founder, you're just going to get, the relationship is just going to be richer all the way around.
Yeah.
And you'll learn a lot too.
So let's jump a little bit forward and let's talk about now, what value have these awesome startups been receiving from Equity Directory? I mean, because that is why you exist, the value that you're giving these startups. So what kind of transformations or accelerations have you seen by different people being exposed to Equity Directory?
So great question. So far, that's still too early to tell, because we just started putting people in touch within the last 2 months. And we haven't been able to track all of the subsequent communication. People CC me for probably 2 or 3 rounds.
Right.
And then what I'm encouraged by is like the level of connection that I see as they sort of depart. We're looking to facilitate that and make that a richer experience in our next version. But right now, we're just seeing some very encouraging communication. But what we are seeing that is validating is inside the introduction that I make. It says, step 1, please connect, regardless of whether you're interested or not. Please close the loop, because I really don't like people not being responded to. And then please show us some love on Twitter with a click to tweet. And so that says, we just made a great connection on Equity Directory. And I could show you a page full of little samples that I've pulled of people tweeting that.
That's awesome.
Which is really cool. It's awesome to see. It's great.
Side question, where do you store your screenshots?
Dropbox.
Perfect. I use Dropbox as well for the podcast. And so two-sided question, one side as a startup founder, the other side as the receiver of your company. Let's just be really clear. When did Equity Directory launch?
Well, we're still in beta, but we launched our beta in about right before, like right at the end of July.
So it's new.
Yeah.
The point is new.
Yeah.
So what would you say so far has been the most successful thing you've done in creating your startup? So first, from the viewpoint as a founder.
The most successful thing I've done, not give up.
Good answer. Great answer.
Because sometimes you have like a down day, and you just and then also meeting Lisa, my co-founder, I would say that's probably the most successful thing, because she's there to she believes, and she's just such a huge supporter, and having someone else believe with you makes all the difference.
Oh, completely. And there's so many more things I could ask, like how did you and your co-founder connect and all this great stuff, but I want to leave time for Eric to join us. And I also want to ask one very important question is, what does success for Equity Directory look like in 2016?
That's a really good question. I would say success for Equity Directory in 2016 is getting the version 2 of the product out the door in Q1, where we really have a platform that includes profiles and a much more robust connection system. Because right now it's really an email system, and so that will be success.
Awesome. And I want to welcome GeoMeek to our conversation. And Evan has been great. I really appreciate your tweets going out. I see Hannah's on the conversation with us. I'm going to unlock a seat so that Eric can join us. Eric, go ahead and grab that seat. Really excited for you to ask all the questions you have. Eric is a private pilot, a scuba diver, a software developer, a Bitcoin enthusiast, a Navy veteran, and a CEO of Coin Outlet Inc. Welcome, Eric. How are you doing, Eric? Can you hear us okay?
Hey, I can hear you fine.
I'm sure even people down the block can hear me.
Welcome to Blab.
Welcome to Blab. So, Eric, what questions do you have for Colin?
I asked the one about the SEC and the concern about open solicitation for equity. But one thing I wanted to mention, I mean, this is a great marriage. There's I think founders dating, where you look for other people, and I think it's similar to what you're doing. But in my previous life as a software developer, there weren't many of us that wanted to work for equity. Whereas I thought, you're insane. Why do you want to work for money? You want to work to be part of a company. You don't want to work for money. But most developers, as you probably realize, don't see it that way. But I think your site is a great marriage for that type of activity for people who do want equity in a company and want to be part of a company, to find people who have the ideas and maybe even the framework. So the other thing I wanted to mention was on your site, I signed up, I went through it, but when I go to get authorized on Twitter, you're asking me to post
Wait, you signed up and you went through it. Colin, meet your new person on your email list that we were talking about before, that I'm sure now.
But I didn't get through it. That's what I was going to tell him.
Okay.
I didn't get through it because it almost got through. It wants to post on my behalf, which I'm not going to authorize my Twitter account like that. So that stopped me in my tracks, and I'm wondering how many other people, if you've noticed, a lot of people stopping at that point and saying, no, you're not going to grab all this information. It's very intrusive. That type of Twitter and activity is intrusive. So, that's too much for me. And I don't know if you've seen that type of activity or tracking that.
So
This is an incredible conversation. Yes, go ahead,
great.
Colin.
So just so I'm clear on what we're talking about, are you referring to the page that you get after you entered your email address?
Yeah, and then I wanted to click in and it wanted me to authorize Twitter. And when I went into Twitter, it asked me, I can send you a link. It wanted to post on my behalf.
Oh, you mean on if you click the share?
To enter my startup. No, now I got to go back. I closed that link.
Is it definitely equitydirectory.co?
We don't have
Twitter all out, so I got to go back. I'll go back through it. I'll send you a link on Twitter.
Great.
And Colin, you could just click on Eric's little icon there, and you guys can stay in touch post this conversation.
Okay, cool.
Eric, what other questions do you have for Colin? And I'm really excited that you jumped in. So thank you for your amazing feedback and being supportive of Colin and his journey.
No, I think it's a great thing. You know, my concern is obviously the SEC. Before I signed up, I'd obviously want to know from my attorney, am I going to get myself into trouble by saying, hey, I'm looking for somebody that I just want to pay in equity? Certainly in New York State, I know you'd run into big trouble doing that. But even outside of there with the SEC rules, I think there would be some concern.
So I don't know how that's going to play out. So far, it hasn't been an issue. Like I said, we are bringing a lawyer on as a consultant for sure, and hopefully more. We're looking to be able to help people process the legal agreements, once they connect. But what we're suggesting people do, at least for the short term, and this could be our long-term suggestion, is that they agree on an hourly rate that could be a higher than a normal rate. And what they do is then they bill that against a convertible note that carries the same terms as the current raise. And then they just effectively become an angel investor.
Okay. I'm just curious about that. That would be my concern. I talked to my attorney before I went ahead with that. Nobody wants to step on the SEC's toes and pay for it later. Sure. So but I love the idea. I think it's fantastic. I'm sorry.
Just a heads up, Eric, that we lost your connection a bit. So I'm going to suggest that you and Colin connect one-on-one after, just because we're about to wrap up.
Thanks,
Thank you so much for jumping on and for being supportive. Bye-bye. So we have time for one more person, or we could start wrapping up. For those of you watching, this is Meet LA Startups, and we have Equity Directory. Colin, who is a co-founder, who has an amazing co-founder named Lisa. And we're going to be doing these every week until the end of the year. So if you have any questions for Colin, why don't you share how to stay in touch with you?
Sure,
and with
please. Can I mention one last thing?
Yeah, okay, you can totally mention 5 last
regarding
things.
Paying customers, we got to the point where we had onboarded a number of people, and I was talking with Shira Abel from 500 Startups. She's a mentor up there. And she asked me how many paying customers I had, and I said none. And she goes, that's dumb. You should do a cheapium model. She said, don't give it away for free. People will just take advantage of you. Do something cheap. Do it for $1.99. Mm-hmm. So I set up inside the application. I was like, will you pay $1.99? And then there's a button where you can go to PayPal. And people started paying. And I was like, okay, well, clearly I should have been doing this from the beginning. And it was great. It did 2 things. One is it showed me that people are willing to pay. It made me feel great. And it also helped me separate the people who were never going to pay and not waste time talking with them.
Completely agree. I think it's really, really important Jason Fried is one of my favorite entrepreneurs with 37 Signals now. They go by Basecamp. And he always gives this description. If you have a bakery shop and you sell cupcakes, if you give away all the cupcakes for free, you're not going to have your bakery shop anymore. It can't sustain itself. So I even got an email. This is very funny. I got an email yesterday. So WeAreLATech has a job board, and the job board is paid. And even yesterday, I got an email from someone who could definitely afford the job board that said if they can have a free job board thing. And I said it in the email. I said, I would love that, but unfortunately, if I gave away all my cupcakes, WeAreLATech wouldn't exist. I literally wrote that line. And so I think what you're doing, Colin, is really smart to be able to gauge, because what was it? The psychological thing is once someone pulls out their credit card to pay you for anything at all, that's like an action of commitment, right? It's taking a step up and beyond by just entering an email address. They're all different levels. And so I think it's great. And I think it'd be great if later on we had a follow-up to see where Equity Directory is in 2016. Awesome. Thank you so much for spending the time with We Are LA Tech Blab Chat. And I'm sure that Blab loves you. And yeah.
My pleasure.
Peace.
All right. Bye-bye.